Hello, it's Tuesday and it's another day for Wanderlust travel stories. The last week we stopped at, let me see, mm, Henriette's story. They were going from Ushuaia then towards Arctic. Let's see how her adventures unfolds. How was everyone's 1st of May? Some countries celebrate it as Labor Day. That was a holiday for me. I went out with friends. We did a small gathering. It was really fun. We were playing with minis, taking photograph of them. One of my friend painted them. They were really beautiful. It was nice to catch up with them, sharing stories like how Tomek they do. Northwesterly. Good wind, say Rado. This is our ticket into the Antarctic. We're all met here when the wind is southerly. Oh, wait. That should be mine. We're all mad here when the wind is southerly. Rado looked at me with sympathy. Kid, you've managed to mix up two great British writers in one sentence. You need this break, or your brain will kill you. Birds circled above us. The yacht was sailing with the mizzen sail on the first reef. The mainsail on second reef, and one of the jeeps let out. We were on a broad reach, and the waves were getting bigger with every minute. Petrels and dolphins accompanied us across the waves. The wind built up nicely, and then the storm clouds started to catch up on us, to us. The infamous Drake Passage. The waves were steep and coming from all directions, and 4 crew members had gotten seasick almost immediately. That meant double watches for the rest of us. After 24 hours, I was barely coherent. My life suddenly became very simple. Eat, sleep, watch, toilet, repeat. I could feel myself getting numb, and after I ignored another one of his jokes, Chris got angry. Yeah, fuck you, Jew. He snapped at me. It's not my fault. It's not my fault they're sick, you know. Fuck, I know, sorry, I said. When I got down from my watch and stumbled into the galley, I saw David standing with his back to me. He was holding a bar of chocolate in his hand, clearly stuffing himself. I thought you couldn't hold anything down. Sorry, that's me. I thought you couldn't hold anything down? He jumped and looked over his shoulder. He hid the chocolate immediately. I heard sugar helped with seasickness, he said. Excellent. That means you'll be able to pick up your watch again, I said matter of factly. was pretty sure he was well enough to work. I went to talk to Rado. But the moment I saw Rado, I knew we had bigger problems. What is it? What? Sorry. What is it? He was up to his elbows in grease and grime. The transmission's a little too hot, he answered. We need to keep feeding it oil, or we could be in for a nasty surprise when we least expect it. He winced and rubbed his back. I'll take care of this. I patted him on the back. Get some sleep before you take the wheel. The days were long, the sunsets spectacular, the nights mind-bogglingly starry. The raging sea sang to me. I focused on sailing, and everything else slipped into the background. There was only the sea. At first glance, the islands looked like clouds hugging the horizon. A dark slit in the blue sky. Then the islands grew bigger as we approached, their grey snow-covered rocks jutting from the ocean. The Melchior Islands, our first stops in the Antarctic, was stunning. I just sat there, a moment of rest. We were all on deck, and even the 4 crew members who were seasick seemed to regain some strength. Well, ahoy! Shouted Chris, and we turned around to see a giant tail fin. We turned around to see a giant tail fin flipping up and disappearing into the water. A couple of humpbacks that were so close we could almost touch them. They calmly appeared near to us, and we followed them for a while. The Melchior Islands. We anchored just off the islands and finally enjoyed some calm seas. We cooked a meal that was wolfed down now that the table was stable and the plates weren't dancing all over the place. After we'd eaten, Rado gave us all some time off. I took the Zodiac and rowed to the shore. I needed to think. I sat on the rocky bench and looked at the sea. Our boat was reflected in the still water. The clouds rushed across the sky, and the sun bounced off the ice and snow. I sat there, inhaling the sharp, cold air. I felt more and more at home here, at sea, heading into the vast unknown. Nature was strangely comforting in its unpredictability, its lack of concern for human moods, emotions, and prejudices. I saw Rado waving from the deck. I waved to him and went back with a smile on my face. Lonely lighter. During my lonely anchor watch, I looked at the stars. I couldn't remember ever seeing so many, or maybe it was because I wasn't familiar with them. Something caught my attention, a smell, and then voices. That David and Matt were stood on deck, laughing. David was holding a joint. I thought about the risk. We were more, and I made sure Rado knew about it, so I let them finish it. I really didn't want to bother with that asshole today. When they were gone, I took a deep breath and slowly exhaled into the bitter night air. There was always one. In the courtroom, at parties, even on a boat cruising the Antarctic. There was always that one entitled dumbass. Flows and growlers. Flows and growlers. We navigated the narrow passes, looking for a way through the frozen maze. It was time to start my watch. The trip to Port Lockroy was long and tedious, and we had to use poles to push away the ice in narrow straits. I marked our position on the map. I was happy. Before I realized it, my watch was over. We passed an iceberg that was leaning like a sinking ship. Penguins were trying to climb its steep slope, jumping out of the water and sliding back in. Jumping and sliding again and again. Finally, after defending ourselves against the last growler, we saw Port Lockroy. Walls of algae-stained ice reach high around the base, and the penguins on rocky islets brayed to each other amusingly. The water in the bay was calm, and as we approached, we saw two other vessels already anchored there. We waved politely to them and prepared to drop anchor. Port Lockroy. Port Lockroy was a museum and penguin counting station. We were greeted by 3 young women who were volunteering for the summer and taking care of the colony. "When you move around, don't scare the penguins," said one of them. "Stay on the path and have fun." The penguins were everywhere. I'd never seen them so close up before. They weren't afraid. In fact, they completely ignored us. Their fluffy gray fledglings were almost as adorable as kittens. We didn't have much time because a cruise ship was coming and we had to make space for it. For a second, I wondered whether it was the ship my dad was supposed to be on. But knowing him, he could drop out at the last moment and decide to go Australia to surf and pick up models. I laugh. He was a grumpy, unpredictable old bugger. Meanwhile, the father. Oh, what happened to Daddy? Henry. Ushuaia was a shock. After the antiquated, brutal modernity of De Gaulle, after the default grace of Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires, after 21 hours, squeezed into flying metal tubes alongside the scarlet faces of crying children, the unwashed olive crochet cardigans of snoring grandmas, and the bruised boos of overworked flight attendants' uniforms. I finally had a decent view in front of me. One glimpse of the mastheads in the marina was enough to remind me of the passage of time. In my brand new orange polo jacket and boots that were too fit for purpose, I look old. No hiding it. I was a father to a grown woman. I was old. I dragged my gaze away from the yacht from the yacht and made my way toward the port to pick up my ticket. I was ready for the most expensive solitude money could buy. The travel agent said that in the coming 2 weeks, we'll see the Falkland Islands, South Georgia, and the Antarctic Peninsula. I had high expectations of the cruise. One in particular. No socializing. The ship was a floating hotel with everything that entailed. A host of elevators, an opulent dining room, a heated, of course, outdoor pool, steam rooms, a spa, and a fitness center. Soon, I found also a lecture facility, theater, and library. Did I mention a full-service salon? There were over 200 passengers, but I managed not to meet them too often. I had an outside, fully equipped balcony suite with a floor-to-ceiling window, perfect for watching whales breaching the waters, as the folder promised. My plan was to do nothing at all, and for a while it was fun. Then boredom crept in. Hello, Hope. Do I read it as the letters or do I read it as the whole meaning? OMFG Henry Taylor? The Henry Taylor? The Henry Taylor? The way the R's roll off her tongue, she knew how to turn an accent into an asset. What an unexpected pleasure. Hello, Hope. Fancy meeting you here. I turned to her friends with an explanation. We used to work together. Everyone, this is the one and only Henry Taylor. Drinks in their hands, her friends look at me curiously. I still owe him for that Vogue cover. A true artist, you know. Henry dear, this is... She made a vague hand gesture. Everyone, you must join us on our quest to find some fun on this dull, freezing excuse for a cruise. I hope I'm doing the accent right, but it's fun to do the R. Goodbye, Hope. It came out harsher than I planned. Nice meeting you all. Enjoy yourselves. Later, alone on the deck. You've changed, came a voice from behind me. I didn't hear her coming. I continued staring at the sea. She leaned against the railing next to me. The old you would have stayed and had fun. She playfully punched my arm. Are you getting senile? I turned to her. She looked somewhere in her late 20s, but had left behind the unsettling, ageless youth of the catwalk. Even now her face was striking in its imperfection. One eye slightly lower than the other. Her nose a little too big, charmingly crooked small teeth, and long unruly hair escaping the confines of a designer wool cap. The camera loved her.
Meow meow. We have a new follower. Meow, meow,
Oh.
meow, meow.
Hi! Thank you for following me. Your hair's different, a few shades lighter, I observed. We like it that way, she smiled. My husband and I. A plain gold band and huge diamond ring adorn her finger. My friend always says... Wait, oh, that's Henry. My friend always says, marriage breaks your back and children grow eating your dreams. I said the first thing that came to my mind. Any children yet? Not yet. But on this trip, she made quite an explicit gesture, I have him cornered. You? I have a daughter. Name her after me. You know. She started laughing, and after a moment, I joined her. We were briefed about using zodiacs for landing, how to approach the wildlife, and generally how to behave in the areas under the Antarctic Treaty. There were more than 200 bird species on Falklands. For a place so full of life, the names were quite morbid. Coffin's Harbour, Carcass Island, Grave Cove. Funny. Let's be honest. It is usually us or them. So if more humans had survived, the animals would have probably all been dead. On Carcass Island, Gentoo and Magellanic penguins were breeding like there was no tomorrow. If you ask me, black-browed albatrosses were just fucking majestic. The waves were too high for us to land, but with a telescopic lens, I saw enough of the birds to have an opinion. Who was naming all the birds? Rockhopper penguins, king cormorants, even Magellanic snipe? I get it, but duck-faced ground giant? Seriously? This guy was like 6 inches long. Sometimes I went ashore on zodiacs to stretch my legs and enjoy the solid ground. Sometimes I stayed on the ship and attended lectures by resident marine biologists. You were never too old to learn. Port Stanley was a weird mixture of Victorian and South American architecture. I visited the marina, but Henriette's yacht had already sailed. Birds were following our wake, climbing air currents stirred by the ship. There were elephant seals on Sea Lion Island, a totally different species. Who was doing the naming again? The stern deck had been colonized by bird watchers, exchanging notes on every albatross and giant petrel they saw. Whale watchers on the bridge, equipped with binoculars and reference book. The library was full of people looking for a place away from the crowds. Desperately, I decided to try the spa. On-board spa. Soaking in a hot tub, I watched the snow fall silently. With a splash, someone sat next to me. I ignored her and watched the snow dance in the wind. She joined me, sipping her drink. Relaxing in the hot, bubbling water, we slowly turned our attention to the other passengers. The spa was full of rich, scantily clad tourists in their early 20s to late 80s. Tell me what you see, I ask. It's like a fashion show, don't you think? She gave me no time to answer. The young and sexy prowl the catwalk, every inch of exposed skin a statement, every scrap a fabric, a symbol of status. She finished her drink in one gulp, while the rich sit in the audience, unseen, staring and drooling. Do you miss it? Wait. Do you miss it? She looked at me. Eh? Maybe it's Henry. Do you miss it? She looked at me. Her pupils dilated. Your work? Oh. So it was her. I said nothing, and she just continued talking like I wasn't there. I miss the thrill of being seen, photographed, being an icon, you know. She sighed and slumped into the water like someone had just turned her off. The rest was shit, a tiring, never-ending, degrading pile of human waste. The rest I don't miss. It was a dirty business, I agreed. Looking at me in the eyes, she took a deep breath, clamped her nose, and slowly submerged under the hot, bubbling water. The silent dance of the snowflakes grew heavier and heavier. The next few days I spent in my cabin, avoiding everyone, hope included. I read a bit. I slept a lot. One day I saw jagged mountains reaching straight from the sea and up to the sky. South Georgia. The whole shore was littered with gigantic sun, bleached bones left behind by the whaling industry. Somewhere on the island, Sir Ernest Shackleton died. A short trip to see the cross, overlooking a scenic Cumberland Bay, was planned. The penguins were adorable with their wobbly walks, like humans preoccupied with their daily routines. I heard a story once about a missionary who, seeing penguins for the first time, mistook them for an unknown tribe and baptized them all en masse. I have no idea if the story is true. Macaroni penguins. Really? In one of the forts, there was Grithifkin, an old sealing station, and a place where the Falklands War started. I wasn't there to witness it. Glacial rivers flowed from the snow-capped mountains straight to the sea. We watched young albatrosses learning to fly. The trick was that their parents had to stop feeding them, finding the right motivation. Parenting 101. The birds accompanied us as we ventured the open sea. The waves got bigger and bigger, and suddenly we were in the middle of a storm. Passengers all but disappeared and were puking in private. Surprisingly, seasickness spared me. I had the ship to myself. don't drink alone. She wore her cocktail dress with a casual charm that was the result of many hours of rigorous training. Alone at the bar with the drink in her hand, she looked like she'd just stepped out of a film noir. I watched her for a while, only to eventually notice her eyes in the mirror over the counter, watching me, watching her. She patted the bar stool on her left. Come and join me. I don't like drinking alone. We drank in silence, and I couldn't help but notice how good a composition she'd make with her face half in shadow and her eyes bright. You keep stealing glances at me. There was a teasing tone in her voice. I was thinking about a photo. I looked at her through a frame I made with my fingers. I thought you retired. I did retire. I put my palms flat on the bar. But all habits die hard. Do you have your favorites? She asked. Photos, I mean. I mulled over the question for a while. Yeah, I have a few I like. Paris, Milan, New York? I shook my head. Kabul, Afghanistan. We all have a past. What are you talking about? Hope frowned. I had another career before we met, before fashion. She looked at me perplexed. I was a war photographer. I looked her dead in the face. From the mid-70s to the early 90s, the troubles, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Iraq, Suriname, Iran, Rwanda, Bosnia. I wasn't sure how many of the conflicts she was old enough to remember. I took some photos, I won some awards, I got shot at, I saw some people die. I thought I was doing something important. But in the end, I don't think anybody cared, even when war came to Europe. She mouthed, wow. Okay, wait. She mouthed, wow, then fell silent. I waited, comfortable with silence. Do you remember that tampon disaster in Moscow? She said, finally. Excuse me. I thought you were surprisingly cool around blood. Now I know why. Later, as we stumbled to our cabins, she leaned toward my ear and breathed a question. Which was worse? I couldn't answer. Both seemed like they'll be exciting in the beginning, and both were a horror when I actually had to make a living out of them. That's why I'm past this whole making a living thing. And with that, she was gone. They say you never forget your first iceberg. I agree. The South Orkney Islands, quite a spectacular view. There was too much ice to go ashore. We were entering, as the brochure explained, well-reached waters. The sea still was turbulent. Sitting in the library when the ship made its way through a blizzard was quite a surreal experience. Sometimes whales surfaced near the ship. The sound of the spray fountains bursting from their blowholes as they exhaled was unforgettable. Unfortunately, so was the fishy smell. They were like me, lonely remnants of times long gone. I like them. We were heading towards Elephant Island, where the Shackleton's expedition spent the winter. Yet another tourist attraction. When the weather allowed, I was spending time on the deck. The tip of the iceberg. She was standing there, looking at the islands on the horizon. "This is my spot," I said as I approached her. I'm not sure if I appreciated the company. It took her a moment to acknowledge my existence. I'm not so sure either. Her words flew out in soft white clouds. So, do you? I joined her without a word. We were the most comfortable in silence. I need you to take my picture. She looked at me as she asked the question, suddenly vulnerable. I shook my head. I'm done with photography. She looked at me pleadingly. No, Hope, I'm done. I'm sorry. Faded photographs. That's bugger all we can do with this lighting. I looked through the viewfinder and changed the lens. Besides, I don't do photography anymore. But you have all the equipment with you. All habits die hard. I check the test picture. After over 40 years, I pack it without thinking. Perfect. She smiled. I don't need you thinking. I need you taking pictures. I pointed the camera at her, but my hand wavered. Don't push me, I asked. What's going on, Henry? She touched my hand. I've never seen you like this before. Where should I start? We're not having this conversation, I said. Let me live the rest of my life the way I choose to. And this photo shoot isn't happening. I started packing my gear. No, she stomped at her foot. I don't have time for your drama. Weird. She didn't even hire him in the first place. Standing in the middle of the cabin, she started going through her modeling routine, changing her pose every 2 seconds. You're a pro, Henry. Do your fucking job. Before I even realized what was happening, I was shooting picture after picture after picture. When we finished, I chose a random shot and shoved it into her hands. Happy now? She nodded and smiled. I looked at the picture. It was good. Blow up. I was thinking of a boudoir shoot. I hope I read it correctly. Said Hope, spreading a few $1,000s worth of lingerie on the bed. I don't know. I hesitated, then started setting up the lighting. I've never shot one before. Don't be a chicken. She threw a tongue at me. You've done plenty of lingerie shows. I raised the camera, and soon we found our old rhythm. Pose, shoot, change clothes, pose, shoot. Why are we doing this again? Hope was posing against the window, hair falling over her naked shoulders, eyes idly following the drifting eyes. For my husband. An anniversary gift? I winked. Nice. An insurance policy. She shrugged. She reached behind her back and undid the bra. I'm a wife. She massaged her breast and pinched her nipples. Without children, I'll be gone in a year or two. She looked at the camera and batted her eyelashes. He's not saying it, but it's a competitive market. How do you feel, Hope? I took my time changing the lens. How do you really feel? I'm trapped in this glided fucking cage. She looked around the cabin with a stunned expression on her face. I don't have to do anything. I have everything I could dream of. I'm loved. There's a but, isn't there? But all I can do is look gorgeous, smile, spend money, and wait. She picked up a crotchless bodysuit, examining it, and dropped it on the floor. God, I need a smoke. Coffee and cigarettes. What would your daughter think? She giggled as we were putting the gear away. Hanging out with naked chicks like this. She knows me, and if anything, she'll be shocked we didn't fuck. She took the camera off me and started going through the pictures. Have you seen her lately? Her birthday is in a few days, I said. The same day as her mother's... What did you get her? Asked Hope. I hope. Oh no. I know. Oh, sorry. I know you have something special in mind. A memory, I said. She needed an anchor. Oh, back to Henriette's. To the edge of the world. We set sail before dawn. Night had started to become a relative term here. everything was devoid of color, like black and white photography. Black mountains, white ice, black water. Ahead of us, icebergs waited like huge buildings prowling the open waters, like two ships. Bloody tourists. David sure had a way of making his opinions known, sitting in their $5,000 polo jackets on a luxury cruise ship, tramping around like spoiled brats. The cruise ship we saw at Port Lockroy was still nearby, but I was hardly paying attention. David, put a sock in, would you? I waved to the tourist. Someone waved back. I watched until the ship disappeared among the growlers. Let's sit on back. Chris was in the galley, reading. When he saw me, he proudly showed me his book, Scott's Diary. The icebergs floating around us were an awe-inspiring sight. On our right was a chain of islands. On our left was the continent itself, covered in endless plains of ancient ice. It was our watch again. The channel was narrow, framed on either side by imposing cliffs of rock and ice. We were ushered through by the cracks, roars and murmurs of the landscape. The bay was filled with grinding ice. As we pushed our way through the floes, the setting sun lit everything in bright reds and oranges. Dinner at the end of the world. An iceberg, carpeted in penguins and reclining seals, stood majestically in the water. I couldn't help thinking of the Titanic. The seals looked like French girls ready to be painted. We entered the Lonco Bay and I gasped. Ahead of us, sandwiched between two black mountains, was a magnificent azure glacier radiating in the sunlight. I'd never seen anything so perfectly beautiful, so calm, and so powerful at the same time. I wanted to squeal like an overexcited teenager. We moored by the iceberg and ate some stew while admiring the glacier. We all stood there motionless and silent, and for a while I felt at home. That was the farthest point south we'd travel on our journey. But of course, that peaceful moment couldn't last forever. After one glass of wine, David started bragging about his business trips. To my surprise, some of the stories were quite amusing. But obviously, when I laughed, he took offense. Going north again. The temperature dropped and the water began to freeze as we set course for the hidden bay. Coffee and chocolate. a moment of bliss. My watch was beginning. Even though I had double insulated gloves on, my hands felt cold. Clouds gathered on the horizon and penguins swam along the yard. Everything was going well. We were the only humans around for miles. I spotted a leopard seal. It was just chilling there, so relaxed. From a distance, it was easy to forget how big the seal was and how quickly it could move when it was hunting. Hidden Bay cut deep into the steep, frozen mountains. We started looking for a safe place to drop anchor. Hidden Bay. There were some doubts whether the anchor would hold. So we split into two groups. One stayed on the yacht and the other was the first to go to the... So let me do this again. There were some doubts whether the anchor would hold. So we split into two groups. One stayed on the yacht and the other was the first to go to shore. I can stay. I decided to stay, watch the anchor, and just relax. By the time they came back, I was so bored, I was ready to jump in the water and swim to the shore. We climbed a hill covered in snow. From the shore, it looked friendly enough, but it was tiring as hell. Wherever I looked, the view was stunning. I saw our boat, Antarctica, the sea, the seals, and penguins. The air was clear and it was eerily quiet. I only heard the occasional noise made by the animals. I think this is halfway of a story, or almost to the end, unless her father's story is gonna be more. I'm gonna stop here tonight and we'll continue the story next week. See you next week. Bye.